Okay, Christina here to listen to some music. And today we are starting our next full album listening. And of course, when I do this track by track, and all of these will be available on Patreon or for channel members. There will be a select few of these that will be posted publicly on YouTube. But today's selection of this album is track number 1, Variations on a Theme by ERIK Satie. First and second movements, adapted from Trois Gymnopedies by Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So I've done 2 other reactions to Blood, Sweat, and Tears on the channel so far. They were Spinning Wheel and You've Made Me So Very Happy. Both of those were winners on the poll for songs by Blood, Sweat, and Tears over on Patreon and for channel members. That was the first and second place. And then right after I recently posted You've Made Me So Very Happy, the news came out, like the day after I posted it, the news came out that the lead singer, David Clayton-Thomas, had passed away at age 84. He was a Canadian musician, singer, songwriter, and from these 2 reactions I'd done on the channel, I was really starting to fall in love with his voice. Like I was sort of thinking about it when I was not even listening to the music. His voice was really sitting with me. It was sort of becoming a part of my consciousness. To learn that he passed away just recently, I was like, well, I think I would like to pay him a tribute. I don't mean to capitalize anything on this channel based off of his passing. I actually try to avoid this sort of thing, but I just feel like because I was really catching on to his voice that I wanted to do this, to dive in myself. I'm hoping all of you will come along with me happily as well. So this is track number 1 from the second album by Blood, Sweat, and Tears that is self-titled Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I believe Spinning Wheel and You've Made Me So Very Happy are the first 2 tracks on side 2. So we'll get through side 1 track at a time, and then we'll hop over to side 2, and I'll skip over those 2, and then we'll continue on. But for now with this one, what else are we doing here? I am a professional classically trained musician, instrumentalist, vocalist, composer, and professor. So we dive into this music looking at how it was composed, the instrumentation, maybe some music theory or form and analysis, also sometimes some instrument demos, but also how do we relate to this music? Why do we like it? Or maybe why do we not like it? I am familiar with the music of ERIK Satie, and I do like his music. So I'm hoping I will like this adaptation of his music. But let's stop wondering about that and let's actually take a listen, shall we? So no more delay. Let's listen. Okay. This is really excited to get this going. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'll back this up a little bit, especially when I heard the third flute coming in. So we have a little trio happening here. That's kind of neat. And I'm hearing little sparklies in the background. You all know that I love when music sparkles. And there was some definite wind chime sparkling action happening back there. Okay, so the original work by ERIK Satie is written for piano. And there have been other adaptations like orchestral, lots of different forms over time. But this is, guitar and flute, 3 flutes. This is a really, really sweet adaptation of this, basically, of the variations, though. So I know the first Gymnopedie really, really well. I don't know the second one quite as well. I know it's basically the same form, the same approach, but I believe they were written at different times, or at least they were published at different times. There was something about the first and the third being together, and sometimes they were even swapped. But then there's something how the second was either published first or later, and there were a couple years in between, something like that. Regardless, this is lovely so far. And again, I love the sparkles. Okay, I'm going to back this up a little bit. See if we can get into when the third flute came in. Okay, whoa. I'm going to back it up and hear this part again. All right. We were just, the flutes went away and the guitar went away. We had just had the sparkles. That was kind of a fun moment. A little cliffhanger there because you're like, what's going to happen next? All right. So we went from woodwinds and strings, basically for guitar, over to brass. Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard ERIK Satie written for a brass ensemble. I have to admit that it wouldn't be my first choice. Nothing against brass instruments. I think they are lovely instruments. And a really good brass ensemble is fantastic. But I guess this does make sense because Blood, Sweat, and Tears has fantastic brass within their music. Yes, they do. So yeah, this makes sense. Of course. Okay. But an interesting turn, yet the same. But then we had the introduction of some drumming, and then it was headed in a different direction sort of altogether. It was sort of stumbling or devolving a little bit. And I guess maybe it needs to do that. So I've done Spinning Wheel and You've Made Me So Very Happy, and both of those have made me so very happy. And so I was kind of wondering, how are we going to get from the Satie guitar and flute to, the brass, jazz, vocals, bluesiness, all of that with the other two tracks that I know are coming later in the album? Well, I think this might demonstrate exactly that pathway. Where's it going to go, though? This is too short. This is only 2.5 minutes long. I want this to be a lot longer, but that's okay. There might be a reprise at the end of the whole album, end of the second side. So I don't know. I can't say what it's going to be, like a conclusion, a coda, or just, is this more like an overture? No, I don't know. This seems like it's more of a transition into the album. But I don't know. I'm starting to be like, okay, what can I expect with this whole album? Wow. All right, let's back it up and hear this brass section again. Okay, that was really cool. All right. So yeah, it really did devolve. It really did. It got quite dissonant towards the end. So the brass ensemble, I was trying to pick out all the instruments. So I heard two trumpets. Was one of them a piccolo? I don't know. And I heard a saxophone in there, and that totally makes sense. With all the jazz in here, we need to have a saxophone. And then two trombones at least, like regular trombone and maybe bass trombone. I don't think I heard any French horns. And then some very intentionally stumbling drums with all of the swirliness, sort of like the sound effect added in of the swirliness, warbly, almost like it was underwater. I think we needed that. Otherwise, it would be too jarring and too literal somehow. What we're getting to literally, though, I'm not quite sure. I think that's sort of up to us and our imaginations. What are we stumbling through? Where are we headed? We started out so simply and beautifully, and we wound up in this much more experimental, almost a darker place. It didn't need to go that dark. But there really was some dissonance there. And dissonance just means like notes that are played together that normally wouldn't go together to form happier sounding harmonies. And I guess you could sort of say that the flute trio at the beginning was almost doing that. Just because it wasn't an exact canon, which like Pachelbel's canon in D is where each instrument, the three instruments, come in and they are literally playing the same thing, but they come in 2 bars delayed each one. The 3 flutes were playing different things completely, I believe. They shared some similar measures. I don't think the first and the third were the same. Was it a canon? No, I'd have to go back and listen. I don't think it was. And if it was in retrograde. But even though there were some conflicting notes that happened there, it was more forgivable because it was so sweet. I mean, we had the sparkles over the top and everything, you know. So we sort of went up from the air, a nice crisp, sparkling air, down to like being underwater. And so what also is really interesting to me is that where we took it with the brass, that is experimental. But at the time of ERIK Satie, he was quite experimental. And in fact, his music sort of took a stand at the time it was written, because music leading up to ERIK Satie's compositions had become so romantic and grandeur and Brahmsian symphonies and concerto works. And Satie came in there and decided to simplify everything. But he did it with such regard to music composition and still coming up with new ideas, new ways of presenting the same notes. Sometimes it can be a daunting task to try to be a music composer because it's like, how many combinations of different notes can people come up with, over time? But there's always room for new ideas. It's also fine to be influenced by the previous music that you've come about from. And sometimes we can actually use more direct quotes and have influences from that, or we can actually go in the opposite direction. So that's sort of what ERIK Satie served in some of his composing, is a step in the opposite direction of where the romantic era of music had come. And so let's go back to the beginning and hear where we started. Lovely. Is it in the same key? Okay, let me see. I think the first one starts with a G. Yeah. That's right. Okay. So it doesn't start on tonic, which is like the key that it's in. It actually starts here, which normally would be like if it was a pickup note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then you would start the song here. But instead, this actually is the first measure, which is a little unusual. It starts here and then goes down to here. So that's part of what Satie was doing. He also, speaking of being sparkly, his music sounds so dreamy, doesn't it? So he's using seventh chords. So a G7, right? And then, yeah, that's the next one. But it's all spread out. There it is. Okay, so that is a D7 chord. But they took the D and moved it down here. He did. He took the D, and then he took the F sharp and put it up here. Yeah, it could be, but it's up. And that F sharp up there is what the flute takes over for the melody there. Okay, so I know that is the first one. Again, I know the first of the three Gymnopedies very well, but I don't know the second as well. So I'm not sure when that is being intertwined as much. I just know that it has that same form, and then the use of some seventh chords. I think the second one goes back and forth between major and minor a little bit more. Anyway, so that was almost a deep dive for music theory. I would like to look at this for a formal deep dive that I do on the channel for patrons over on Patreon and for channel members, where I really do a chord analysis. I bring up the score and we take a look. It's a lot of fun. But for now, that's as far as I'm going to dig in. We have found how the chords are expressed there. And from there, we get to let it really soak in. So let's move ahead a little bit and hear again where the entrance is, where the third flute comes in. Yes, there's the second flute, and that is a nice variation there, that the first flute's going up there. And the sparkles. Okay, that's an interesting note for the two of the flutes to end on there. See now, is it a canon? Is it a direct canon? It might be. But it changed a little bit. Okay, and that to me almost sounds like a train, a horn for a train. A train whistle. Ah. Nice. So yeah, it might be a canon almost up to the end, and then they all sort of ended together. But now we move into more experimentation. Yeah, I definitely hear a saxophone in there. The bottom. Yeah, that's really precarious. Okay, so did we hear the stepwise going up in the lower brass? Let's hear that again, the ascending line. Okay, now listen to the lower brass. Yeah, almost a chromatic scale. So that's interesting. The counterpoint in this is really interesting. To me, it's very experimental. But it all is classically based. And then we have the drum, right? Here it is. I like the drum in there. And then here comes the underwater warble, right? Okay. Okay. Now we're getting a little bit more contemporary here, more modern with this. It's starting to sound more like Hindemith, who's a early 20th century composer. Very, very different styles of composing there. And it's really interesting that they took us from one of those styles to the other. But let's just continue. I want to hear the end again. Okay. It's a little bit more triumphant here. Ooh, that's hard to do. On the brass instruments. Woo! Oh, okay. And it sort of leaves us wondering what's going to happen next. It sort of presents itself. Hey, thanks for joining us. What's going to happen next? You know what? I can really relate to that right now. That's pretty much my message here as well. Thanks for joining me, but hey, what's going to happen next on this album? Okay. So I already knew that this group had a fantastic brass section that they utilized. And obviously the arrangements had to be really, really good. Whoever does these arrangements here obviously is very much influenced by classical music. I agree with every choice that was made here, including the stumbling at the end, because it did get a little bit seemingly out of control right towards the end, but then it sort of got its footing back and was a little bit more triumphant. Sort of like, you know what? We're just kind of teasing. We're not really going to let this get too out of control. Just trust us on this little musical journey here and just wait until what comes next, because we think you're going to love it. So that's my interpretation. Again, no lyrics here, right? No lyrics. So that's my interpretation of what this intro is. That's a lot of messaging jam-packed into 2.5 minutes, especially with no actual words. And of course, we didn't get to hear David Clayton-Thomas sing, but in my heart, he is still singing. And soon, I know in the upcoming tracks, I will get to hear him. Otherwise, this is just a really cool track. What a great start to this album. Okay, that was Variations on a Theme by ERIK Satie by Blood, Sweat, and Tears, the very first track to this new full album endeavor that we are now taking here on the channel. And I was not at all disappointed. This was fantastic. I don't know exactly at all where it's going to take us, this little adventure here, but I trust it. I trust this experience already. Wow. So again, this is part of our full Album Friday series on Patreon and for channel members. If we end up releasing this one to the public and you're interested in seeing the rest of the tracks, because again, not all of them are released publicly, but if you want to experience the whole album with me, then you can join me over on Patreon or become a channel member. And when you do that, you get access to all of the other stuff that I've posted. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's not posted publicly, and you get access to all of that backlog of everything, the whole catalog, plus lots of like behind the scenes and things like that. And we get to discuss music in both platforms too. It's a lot of fun. And so we will also be looking forward to getting to hear more of David Clayton-Thomas and his lovely voice. And it is starting to hit hard that we just lost this musician. So I am so very happy to be paying tribute to him and this group. So thanks for coming along with me for this one. I hope you join me for the rest of this album. And so for now, as always, just remember that you don't have to be perfect. Just be okay. And keep listening.